Hello, all you bitches, kings, and non-binary beings, I'm back! And no, this is not a fantasy world you have encountered with good audio quality. No, this is, well, I'm back, baby. I'm back, bitch. You can't kill me forever. Yeah, finally, you're hearing the pristine quality of a very, very graciously donated microphone by, a spastic organization. So, yeah, this is the, completed final whatever version of every copy of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green are personalized. Is personalized? Are personalized. Or as I've written down in my notes, R, B, and G are personalized. Or, I guess, original Gen 1? I don't know. I'm gonna try and not rant, okay? I've promised myself I'm going to try and keep... I'm gonna try and keep on script. I spent days writing this out. So yeah, I hope that the pop filter is working, cause, oh my god, there's a reason why I don't listen to my old videos. So, as always, god, this is so long, it feels like... It feels like when you have one of those weird lucid dreams, and you, like, de-age mentally to be doing this again. I have my cup of tea. I really hope you can hear my cup of tea, you know, because, it's kind of a tradition. It is, English breakfast, as always, because, I'm a lazy cow, and I am yet to, fully drink all of them in, like, a year. Maybe that just, spells out how much of a coffee addict I am. Yeah, yas. So, ever since that dreadful pandemic, no less than 5 years ago now. Yeah, no less than 5 years ago. Well, technically 5 years and 4 months. Well, actually, is it? No, 3 months. 5 years and. Well, actually, no. It's 5 years and 4 months since technically the first case was in. You know what I fucking mean. Give or take that we'd rather no longer speak of that would no longer speak of. A certain surge has, or rather was, I mean, it still has. I mean, Fiznon played B3313 recently, yes. It's been unleashing across the internet, that's alright. Well, okay, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. We're talking about icebergs. A sort of, a niche genre of YouTube videos that thrives even now, getting hundreds of thousands of views on channels like Kappa Dance, Blame It on Jorge, Wendigoon, and Gambado Gaming. As for extended beyond its early, far more niche beginnings. It all started around 2020 with the release of the Super Mario 64 Iceberg that kick-started a trend, completely transforming the meta of YouTube for months after its release. A video that remains in deep mythos even now. Its legacy extends mainly for one reason, for one particular entry on the iceberg that has fascinated millions and struck fear into the hearts of nostalgic 90s kids everywhere. Every copy of Super Mario motherfucking 64 is personalized. Yes, yeah. I'm trying to stick on script, fuck's sake. Many a conspiracy and many a creepypasta has been born ever since the simple concept got popularized. It gave us remarkable games, and fan games like B3313, which I mentioned earlier, and many probable hundreds of videos to sleep to. It's given, obviously, many people nostalgia too, but allowing many who had strange experiences or heard thrilling rumors as a child to re-experience that same thrill of as pre-internet gaming rumors. It's also given us many an analog horror series like Super Mario 64 Classified. God, I fucking love that series. I love that they use the fucking, what was it, like the 90s Mario voice? Hey, Campachos! Whatever the fuck it was. Hey, Luigi, do you got a penis? Oh god, I'm YouTube poop. Hey, Luigi, what do you got there? I've got a gun, Mario! Why do... This is about as much as a shit show as I thought it'd be. Why do I give the lengthy introduction now? Why do I feel the need to explain all of this in such an extremely autistic way? Well, it's quite simple, really. What if this concept was done with Pokemon? Specifically, the consistently most broken and mysterious Pokemon games ever released. No, not the most recent Pokemon games, believe me, they're nothing on these ones. I mean, seriously, like a few broken and glitchy textures? Fuck me, that's nothing compared to what we're about to talk about. I'm talking about the 1995 releases Pokemon Red version and Pokemon Blue version in the West, and Pokemon Green version in Japan, otherwise known as Pokemon Generation 1. Small correction, I wrote in the script 95, but Pokemon Green released in 1993. Yeah, we're talking about those fuckers, okay? I'm sorry, you can bitch, whine, and like soy face cry about Pokemon Gen 9 as much as you want, but these fuckers don't have literal game mechanics that don't even work because of glitches, okay? You do not get worse than Pokemon Generation 1, it is why it is in my F tier, it's miraculously, it is not as bad as Pokemon Generation 2, okay? I am not gonna get into my personal feelings about Gen 1 and why I think they are dog shit, but yeah, okay, I'm going off script again, I need to focus. What if every copy of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green are personalized? It probably sounds like a meme. I know, but trust me, run with me on this. What if? Think of every weird thing you experienced back in the day as a kid that never seems to happen in a simulated ROM hack. Every time the Lavender Town music sounded just a little different in pitch, or rhythm, or every weird trainer that seemed to come out of nowhere. No matter where you went, that you could never fight again. Every time a Pokemon cried the wrong way. Or you found a patch of grass that seemed out of place or outright impossible to exist in that location. What if all of these were to do with a seemingly endless variation of copies Nintendo created before the game ever officially released? Instead of a personalization AI like with every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized, it was several million hand-curated experiences created by team lead Sakoto Dashihiri and Shinjigeru Miyamoto. It is an interesting thought, right? Really gets the nostalgia pumping and the brain whirring into action, questioning every decision that's brought you to where you are and where you were and everything you did. To quote Satoshi in 1997, "The shape of a forest, the Pokemon that appears. I wanted to make a game that would be different for everyone, but it was difficult." Now, usually people would counteract this by saying simply that, you know, reading from this, like, at a distance is actually really fucking hard, sorry. I'm gonna take a sip of tea, Going in. Oh, fuck me, that's hot. Where were we? Do you know, I think I might try to hold this, that might be easier. Now usually people would counteract this by saying simply that, well, this quote proves that they never followed through with the idea, you autistic retard. But my counter-argument is this. Have you ever encountered something that simply shouldn't have been there? Or perhaps seen something you weren't supposed to see? Maybe a glitchy sprite Pokemon encountered without the proper steps, as if it was supposed to be something else. A text box given to an NPC that wasn't ever supposed to talk. Or even a held item moved from one spot to another spot, seemingly in between two playthroughs of the same game. Yup. That would meet my criteria for personalization. So, to finish off this little introduction to my concept and to finish my thesis, so to speak, I will quickly list out what constitutes as an anomaly, sign of personalization, and unusual entity in your Pokemon Red, Blue, or Green cartridges. Some of the most common anomalies would never be noticed if you weren't explicitly looking for them. Such anomalies include key items shifted 1 or 2 tiles in one direction from their usual place, a tile or texture to have a few additional or less pixels, a tile or texture to be swapped with a similar tile/texture that has usually only color or dimensional differences, a house/building having 1 or 2 less tiles on their edges, where it'd be covered by replaced tiles being stretched out, NPCs standing a few tiles shifted in a certain direction by 1 or 2 movements, and NPCs having slightly different worded dialogue, like Sailor Leonard, where he typically says, "I like feisty kids like you," but it's possible for this dialogue to, most commonly, have the word feisty replaced with crazy, or troublesome, or silly, or even stinky. God, half these lines actually make him sound way fucking creepier. Holy fucking shit, Gen 1 really does have a pedo problem. Other common signs of personalization can be even more subtle than that. One notable occurrence is bits of lore being changed or swapped out, often being given completely different meanings. A notable example of this would be the diary in the Cinnabar Mansion, in which you initially learn about the creation of Mewtwo. The most common journal entry to be changed is the first one, in a released normal version of the game, saying Diary, July 5th, Guyana, South America. A new Pokemon was discovered deep in the jungle. Notable alterations have been subtle, such as the date changing from July 5th to January 6th, July 4th, January 1st, February 2nd, December 4th, and even July 22nd. Another notable alteration is the nation occasionally saying Colombia, or Peru, or even Cuba. Finally, I constitute a sign of personalization as unknown entities appearing unannounced, entire dialogue being added in or taken away, new areas of the game appearing, and even Pokemon outside of the initial 150 not just appearing, but with full models and unique moves, but being catchable and usable as well. Extreme degrees of personalization can also include notable figures and items from creepypastas or even figures from unreleased games, like a floating pink Pokemon described by the girl at Mount Moon, sometimes randomly appearing and looking like a rounded balloon, like Jigglypuff, bearing only surface level similarities to Munna and Luciana from Generation 5. To summarize, a real sign of an anomaly includes tiles moving, unknown Pokemon and NPCs sometimes appearing, dialogue changing, dialogue being added in, dialogue being taken out, and other such corruptions that change just little aspects of the game, adding a sort of liminal feeling that you can't quite explain. Unlike what I'm sure many are hoping, no, creepypastas are not entirely true, but can have elements of them carrying over, like glitches where unknown appear in your party, spelling out names, and almost tactical feeling freezes, and key-shifting songs. Something like White Hand or Buried Alive, even in personalized copies, are still just fiction, unfortunately. I know, you all wanted to die horrific deaths at the hand of spooky, haunted, blood-realistic eyes, but unfortunately it's not gonna happen. Reality is often disappointing. Now that we have all that boring logical stuff out of the way, it's about time we got into all the notable examples of corruptions, personalizations, and new discoveries made from my research on these personalized copies. Only a few hundred are known to exist though, so remember that these are incredibly rare, and these are mostly cherry-picked and probably will never happen to you. If you do happen to have one of these few hundred personalised copies, I hope that this helps as a sort of guide to discovering and naming some of these oddities for yourself. God, that's a lengthy fucking introduction. I need more tea. It's probably still gonna be fucking boiling hot. Still pretty hot, yeah. Let's get this bitch on the road then, huh? The first time I encountered this bizarre mystery was actually on my old copy of the Japanese green version. Yes, I used to collect cartridges, sue me, dickhead. When I was replaying it about 5 or 6 years ago. It started out as my normal adventure using Google Translate to get me through the tutorial dialogue and laughing at some of the bizarre translations, whilst breezing my way through the first 2 gyms with Bulbasaur as my starter. I know, bitch, sub, whatever. After Misty's gym, I decided to try and catch a Mew, using the Golden Nugget Bridge, as most people use, catching an Abra, pressing start on the grass, avoiding the trainer with a teleport, as you would, yada 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 yada, go watch Glitch Quest. However, suddenly my game froze. Instead of getting into a battle and hearing the familiar music, I heard an alternative version of the song. Usually, the Generation 1 battle theme begins with an upscaling arpeggio. This is a music theory term to describe breaking up a group of 3 notes played together. Okay, well, that's an oversimplification since you can have chords consisting of 4 or 5 notes, but you know what I mean. Otherwise known as a chord, into individual notes being played into succession. However, in this case, it was more of an erratic series of notes, seeming to be in a disharmonious middle ground between the major and minor keys before just stopping dead into silence as if the track was unfinished. Spooky! It seemed impossible to I skipped forward a paragraph. However, suddenly my game froze. Instead of getting into a battle and hearing the familiar music... Oh no, fuck. I already did that. After this, a sprite of a never-before-seen grey, almost Kangaskhan-like Pokemon appeared on the screen. Something that should be impossible in Generation 1. And took a few steps towards my character. This whole time I thought my screen was frozen because there was no sound and I was unable to move my character. However, once I regained control, I realised whatever this was, it seemed to almost be a cutscene, as after I regained control, the sprite began running after me with the silence still deafening. It seemed impossible to escape. The sprite was able to run whilst I was only able to walk, leading it to quickly catch me, causing my game to just go black and then reload back at my last save. Again, I was met by the sprite in the cutscene of its introduction before having to try to run away from Route 24 and onto Nugget Bridge to escape once more. Still though, I was easily caught and my screen went black. On attempt number 3, I decided to try something I knew wouldn't work, or thought wouldn't work. Pressing B to run. Miraculously enough, it fucking worked. I was able to run surprisingly fast, faster than any of the other games, and dart across Nugget Bridge, where the sprite got to the middle of the bridge, suddenly stopped, and then the game froze again before the sprite just disappeared as if it had never been there in the first place. Obviously, this scared me slightly. It seemed so unreal, like something from a dream. It felt like I was experiencing something truly unique for the whole time. Like, this was like I was the only person to ever experience this, like, ever. I went to the online forums and Reddit to see if this was, in any retrospect, to see if this was true in any retrospect. To see if maybe I just had some sort of daydream and imagine the whole thing. After a few hundred comments and replies, it seemed to confirm my daydreaming suspicions. However, after I decided to do some digging of my own, I managed to dig up many stories from the deep web and old forums which were similar to mine. I even found one story with an event very similar to mine occurring, with the only difference being that the sprite was of a bug-like creature with a square head and big stalk eyes. This is how I was inspired to create this list. This is the moment I realised that every copy of Pokemon Red, Blue and Green could be personalised. Another and more notable and major personalisation I've heard from a 4chan post back in 2011, I will quote in full since it is quite short. So I was playing my old copy of Pokemon Blue the other day, feeling some nostalgia and wanting to go beat some trainers that I probably forgot to beat last time. I played about a decade ago. It was normal for the time being. I just went to the Safari Zone and caught a Tauros in an Execute, which I was missing for some reason. After that, I decided to go look around Pallet Town in the postgame because I remembered all the schoolyard rumours of Pokegods and catchable starter Pokemon that existed around there. Though this is where things started to go wrong. Suddenly, just as I entered onto Route 1, the music changed. I'd never heard this song before. It sounded out almost in a minor key instead of a major key. It seemed to use a lot more dissonant and harsh notes than the theme would typically use, making me already start to feel unsettled. That's when I got a sudden Pokemon encounter, which luckily enough had the normal music to it. The Pokemon I encountered though was not normal. In fact, it didn't look like a Pokemon that should be in any Pokemon game. I swear guys, this is not a creepypasta. It looked almost like a Nidorina, with curved spikes on its back and big round ears. But its eyes were rounded and almost soulless, looking whilst it's more stretched outwards and rounded out at the tip, with only 2 large fangs on its upper jaw, its tail looking like a sort of big chunky sausage. I think I forgot to mention that its sprite was looking towards me, by the way, and it was like turned half around. I tried to catch the Pokemon, but every time I clicked on the Pokeball, an error text box showed up and stopped me. I tried to use different Pokeballs, but every time the same error text box happened. It was crazy! Eventually, I just gave up and tried to kill it with my level 87 Charizard's flamethrower. However, it only did like 5% of its health before the Pokemon just one-shot my Charizard with some weird move I've never seen before called Mega Blast, making me switch into my level 60 Blastoise and quickly run from the battle. Though I never returned to the normal screen, instead I got the blacked out text box before my screen glitched out and I just got teleported into Sabrina's gym for some reason. So, I think I found a Pokegod? I don't know, but please guys don't ban me. I'm not trolling, this isn't like a creepypasta. I promise that I'm being legit here. Please help me solve what the fuck happened! So yeah. This is probably an even more of that story of personalization. Note how the player has 2 different starter Pokemon instead of just 1. Considering that the Charizard was level 87 whilst the Blastoise was only level 60, the user must have caught a Squirtle later on in the wild and not thought about it. The mention of Pokegods and playground rumours seem to indicate that the chances are the user didn't explore in the usually blocked off grass, like the playground rumours used to say. They must have encountered a Squirtle/Wartortle in the wild. Another story I came across in my earlier days of digging is even shorter because it's not really a story at all. I found it on some old Pokemon forum that seemed dated to around 2005 or 2006. That mostly just had different players giving each other tips and theorising about lore on message boards, whilst a few people upkept the website. I came across what seemed to be a blog with 4 pictures. The text had been removed or moderated for a long time, but the pictures remained with some small descriptive text underneath them. I'll now go into it. The first picture was a picture of Viridian Forest, but it didn't look like the normal Viridian Forest. It didn't have any corners or shadows, instead seeming to be almost shaped like a semicircle and repeating infinitely throughout multiple exit and entrance points. The little text below it just reading Viridian Forest being a different shape. I couldn't really get out of it because it kept looping. The second picture was a picture of the truck that, presumably, according to childhood legend, Mew would be under. In the first picture, though, the truck isn't there. Instead, the place it would normally be just covered by a normal, albeit out-of-place looking rock texture, presumably from Mount Moon or Diglett Cave. And text underneath it just reading, don't think this was here last time, end quote. Finally, the third creature showed the back sprite of a Marowak in a battle against a very odd-looking gloom. Instead of navy blue, like the usual gloom was, more of a bright grey shading. The Marowak, though, had spines travelling down its back and a more angular skull than usual, with what appeared to be either a glitchy texture or literal gaping hole on its back. The text below the picture just reading, I think the Pokemon are diseased. Now, I don't think I really have to name all of the personalizations I noticed here, but I'll point out a few less obvious ones, for the sake of those of you looking to continue my work after finishing this video. I think the first one's pretty self-explanatory, so I'll just jump ahead to the second picture, where, as you can clearly see, my explanation from earlier can come in useful. This appears to be a more common personalization technique of simply swapping in textures that look similar and distorting them to have been swapped out for its beta version. And distorting them to fit a new content, albeit to a more extreme degree than usual. In the third picture, the personalization becomes extremely obvious, with the Marowak back sprite seeming to have been swapped out for its beta version, though where the hole comes from I still have no idea. Whilst the gloom is clearly discoloured somewhat, this could just be a glitch instead of personalization, no, considering how fucking broken these games are. Oh god, I need more tea in my voice, I'm not good at doing all these fucking wordy bullshit. Oh god, there's so much, I'm not even halfway through it. Of course I did more digging. I cross-referenced the images and writing styles, searched up and down different forums and internet archives, but found nothing. Well, nothing for the same user anyway. What made it particularly difficult was that the website I found these on didn't have usernames for whatever reason, so it was impossible to really track cross-websites. After all else failed, I ended up just reverse searching the images hoping to find something from them, which is how I ended up finding an even more mysterious image, though I don't think it comes from the user themselves. There was no text, just a single image of the trainer sprite standing in the middle of some tall grass in the middle of the route. First it seemed pretty normal, but then, like an AI-generated image, the moment I took a closer look at the entire image, it unfurled itself, and its mystery before my very eyes, my mind becoming thoroughly unsettled. The trainer sprite wasn't one of the usual ones. It wasn't red or blue or heck even green. It was some weird long-faced trainer sprite with curly hair and a brown colour palette instead of a red or blue one. The grass itself was pointed in a more circular shape, instead of the rectangular shapes it normally is in Gen 1. Looking almost more like a Gen 2 route than a Gen 1 route. It was unmistakably Gen 1 though, since the rest of the colours were the usual black and white characteristic of only Pokemon Red and Blue. Plus, I saw what appeared to be a cool trainer sprite in the corner indicative of Route 25 near the Cerulean City. Trying to track down the source of the image though resulted in no favours. Even when reverse searching, I found no other images even similar to this one. It was truly unique. A dead end, unfortunately, so I just gave up on the search and moved on to something else. A lot of these searches typically end up like this, the whole personalization thing being so rare and unknown that it's nigh impossible to properly identify actually personalized images. It's then even harder to find their sources or their sequels and prequels. This next occurrence is a lot more recent, having occurred to me late last year whilst I was pulling an all-nighter watching YouTube videos, more specifically nostalgia older YouTube videos. Now I was far too tired and brain dead, basically like usual, at that point to really properly read what the name of the video was, unfortunately. You're probably gonna think I'm faking this, huh? So, I only have the notes I wrote for myself whilst I was watching it for me to remember and I've not been able to properly track down the videos since, though I think I may have found a screenshot from the video, I was writing the script for this one though. I keep fucking dropping shit. The video was an old Let's Play of somebody's old Pokemon Blue cartridge. It seems to have been one of the final videos since they were getting ready to challenge the Cinnabar Gym made around 2012, with most of the commentary of the video revolving around shit-talking the newest games, which at that point were Pokemon Black and White 2. It was around the 3-minute mark where I noticed something wrong with the footage, just as they were in the Pokemon Mansion. Instead of Ditto, the Pokemon they were encountering were Weedle, Grimmers, and Ghastlies, which is not normal for the Pokemon Mansion, which in every version of Kanto at floor B1F would be Raticates and Vulpix and the like. The only normal of these encounters being the Grimmers. What was even weirder though, was that when the Let's Player tried to catch one of the Ghastlies, the Pokeball immediately broke on impact as the Ghastly used a move I've never seen before, Soul Eater, where it puts the Let's Player's Vulpix, which they seem to have gotten before they normally would be able to, judging that they had it before they entered the Pokemon Mansion to sleep, before instantly KOing it with soul damage, causing its health bar to go black instead of red when it fainted. I know this sounds like something out of a creepypasta, but as you've seen here, this is rare but not atypical for personalized cartridges. Afterwards, the Let's Player simply retrieved his now fainted Vulpix, and now sent out their Butterfree, which they used to escape the newly overpowered Ghastly, and quickly run away from the battle and back to the Pokemon Center on Cinnabar, where they healed their Pokemon. As if this wasn't enough evidence that their copy was clearly personalized, the Let's Player didn't react at all to this, instead acting as if this is all entirely normal, and implying that it happens every time they come here. To quote from my notes, Gosh, I should be more careful, guys. One of those almost ended a Nuzlocke of mine a few years ago. I should have remembered they're in there, jeez. End quote. After this, the Let's Player re-entered the Pokemon Mansion, and yet again made it to B1F, where they got past the dangerous Ghastly, and found the pages of the diary as you would usually do. However, specifically, journal entry number 3 was very different to how it normally is though. Instead of the normal entry, which reads, Diary, February 6th, Mew gave birth. We named the newborn Pokemon Mewtwo. The journal read, Diary, March 13th. The Pokemon seized from the Forgotten Land had difficulties. Subject on life support. Again, the Let's Player acted as if it had always been this way, not even acknowledging that they'd encountered a different journal entry before, like you'd see in an emulator. The Let's Player actually started discussing his personal headcanons and theories as to what the mysterious land was, though. I can't remember what the headcanons and theories were, though, unfortunately, so I bet they were absolutely insane. The final thing on my notes is that the mansion had an additional room in this player's version, with the player around the 15-minute mark, turning a corner on the second floor and entering what appears to be an empty room with just one repeating tile making up the walls and flooring, whilst an altar sits in the centre of the room. The altar appears to be a brand new sprite not seen in the beta nor... The altar appears to be a brand new sprite not seen in the beta nor release versions of the game, something completely unique to this player's version of the game. When interacted with, the altar just pops up with a text box reading, "Don't touch what you don't understand," before some invisible force seems to push the player sprite away. However, the Let's Player mentions an Easter egg and interacts with the altar 5 times before suddenly the altar asks a question, like the sort you see at the Cinnabar Gym. On what island do you find Kabin? The player answered a place like Ho Island, and the altar moved aside, allowing the player to jump down the new hole. The Pokemon Mansion basement was a darkened room that the Let's Player had to use Flash to see. After using Flash, the room was revealed to be made up of rocky textures, seeming to be the same textures used in Cerulean Cave. On the walls and flooring made of what appeared to be another new texture being coloured a light brown, or about as brown as you can get in Gen 1, making the room almost look like a beta version of the later used ruins of Alph in Generation 2. The player doesn't do much in the room though, just walking up and down the walls where a text box appears reading unknown letter-shaped Pokemon appear to be making a pattern. Appearing before again an unseen force seems to push the sprite and the sprite back, and the Let's Player announcing that this is the end of the Easter egg, and using Fly to get back to Cinnabar Island. Though, an interesting note is that on the map, for a split second, it appears before the Let's Player flies back to Cinnabar, it shows that at the moment the player is somewhere far off the beaten path. Their identifying dot being way off the border of the screen, seeming to not even be in Kanto anymore. It is also useful to note that this is a well-known visual bug with the game and might not mean anything.
Holy shit, back for round 2. Apparently this script was so fucking boring that I had to end because my Mac just died. So this is day 2, been quite busy. Had the council doing shit, you know, typical British things, having a nationalised health service, and, you know, council and nationalised housing, you know, that sort of thing. Oh god, you poor Americans, I'm really rubbing it in, huh? I probably shouldn't rub it in this much. Should I rub it in this much? Yeah, fuck it, I'm British, it's in my genes. It's in my genes, I colonised the healthcare service. I think I remember roughly where we are, yeah. I should probably start again on the script. I think we're nearly at the end, it shouldn't take too long. And also I don't have any tea with me, I'm doing this pretty, like ad hoc, so if I sound a little bit different, it's because I'm in a different location. For some reason I couldn't get my pop filter to work with my tripod. It's a whole thing. I've spent a long time trying to track down this video, but alas, to no avail. If anybody watching this can find the video, then a link would be very much appreciated, thank you. Also, just as an extra note, if anyone makes discoveries of personalization, do be sure to comment the link to where you've noted it, or if you've made a video on the topic, use the hashtag personalised Pokemon, or tag me in the video directly, and I'll try to keep all of our collective research in a single playlist together as best I can. As you all know, I am incredibly unorganised and fail at basically every task I try to do, so that is not a guarantee. Anyway, swiftly moving on, this next occurrence is unfortunately just another set of images, not anything exciting like a video or some sort of erotic fanfiction. It comes from an old Cerebi.net thread from 2003, featuring a user named Menios260, documenting their experience exploring a supposed new island in their copy of Pokemon Red that they've never seen before. The thread starts with a short introduction documenting how the player was surfing along the routes nearby Cinnabar Island when they noticed that an area they swear used to be blocked off by rocks could now be explored, then proceeding to travel for nearly 20 minutes eastwards, encountering 0 Pokemon and 0 trainers, until hitting a stretch of beach tiles with nothing but a sign to indicate that the player hadn't found themselves in Glitch City. If you don't know what Glitch City is, by the way, it's basically if you, like, fuck with Gen 1 too much, the whole game, like, actually breaks, and all the textures, like, meld together and shit. It's actually kind of creepy. The player approached the signs and interacted with them. The player approached the sign... Script error? The player approached the sign and interacted with it, noting how the resulting box read, "Welcome to Hewa. Welcome to Hewa to a island. Hope you brought flowers." God, now that if that isn't the most Pokemon-ass fucking name ever, holy shit. Hewa to a island. Kill me. Oh, please remind me to never do scripts ever again. Please remind me to never do scripts ever again. Please remind me to never do scripts ever again. The thread then continues on to the thread then splits into 2 pictures, with the first picture showing the water of the route taken to Hewa 2A Island, the water texture seeming completely normal, if not haphazardly repetitive, as if they were done last minute. The second picture showing the beach of the island, which appears to have some beach texture used on Cerulean Beach near Cerulean Cave. The thread then continues on to mention how the player then walked forward to be warped into what looked to be an edited copy of Viridian Forest, just with more left turns and less straight paths. The encounter in the tall grass included what appeared to be a reverse-coloured Butterfree, Beedrill, Gloom, and Pinsir, successively, not in the same encounter. Weird scripting, I know. I think I was, like, very sleep-deprived by the time I got to this part. The forest apparently seemed to stretch on forever, with the player ending up getting lost several times, eventually finding their way to what appeared to be a semicircle section, where they were met with a gauntlet of 3 trainers. They were just normal late-game bug catchers with 3 Pokemon teams, consisting of random level 45, 47, and 50 bug-type Pokemon, though the previously mentioned Pokemon use their reverse color versions rather than their normal versions. The thread then shows 3 pictures, with each picture depicting a different battle against the bug catchers. The first battle being an entirely normal battle against a level 47 Scyther, though it is worth to note that the player's level 42 Tauros has has Fire Fang, not Iron Fang. Fire Fang. Which it can't normally learn by any method in Generation 1. The second picture depicts a battle against a normal-looking level 45 Metapod, with the weird part this time being that the trainer sprite is of a hiker class, not a bug catcher. The only difference being that it seems to have had one of the bug catcher's hats haphazardly put on it, instead of the hiker hat, and a bug-catching net placed in its hand instead of the cane a hiker normally carries. The third picture depicts presumably the third battle with the level 47 Pokemon the player is facing, being what appears to be the beta sprite version of Spinarak. a Pokemon that shouldn't even be considered by pre-release Generation 1. This being the catalyst to the overarching theory I have that everything to do with Pokemon Generations 2 and 3 comes from the butchered personalization assets made for Generation 1. The thread then continues on to briefly go over the rest of the player's adventures on the island, including a wild encounter and capture of a beta sprite Spinarak, which has an unusually high base speed stat for a Spinarak, with a speed stat level 39 being 58, which places it as unusually higher than its release counterpart and beta counterparts in Generation 2. After that, another overworld sprite of a Pokemon can be seen on a bridge, this being only the second time I've seen this personalization, including my copy of the game mentioned earlier, leading to what appears to be a boss battle against a level 5 Gaianon, which is a Pokemon that recently became well known for being an unreleased concept from when Pokemon was called Capsule Monsters. The boss battle is then described as fierce, with the Gaianon being described as using new and overpowered moves like Dangerous Roar, which dealt a guaranteed 50 damage to the player's Pokemon, Super Stomp, which hit twice, with the second hit dealing guaranteed 5% of their health in some form of coiling damage at the end of every turn. The player couldn't catch Gaianon and was forced to defeat it. After the Pokemon's defeat, a text box appeared reading, "The beast has been vanquished, hooray!" Before the sprite of the Pokemon lingered for just a few seconds too long, making the player feel uncomfortable before suddenly just popping out of existence. The thread then goes on to show two pictures of Gaianon during the battle, with a front sprite matching up exactly with what we see on the Game Freak art for Capsule Monsters, but the second sprite was Gaianon in the middle of using one of its attacks, showing it opening its mouth unnaturally wide and its neck sort of flaring outwards like an air sac. The thread then concludes with the player detailing how they went on to explore the rest of the island, with the island being entirely made up of routes, following a single river, with nothing but pink-coloured Butterfree and Venomoth to catch, and several Viridian Forest-like routes, which seem to use the same textures as Viridian Forest, but just displayed in slightly different directions, like one of the forests having more of a curving westward shape, and another of the forests, seemingly the smallest of the forests, seem to make up an upside-down 5 shape if you look at it in isolation. The encounters in the forest being entirely made up of reverse-coloured Kakuna, Beedrill, Gloom, Vileplume, and even a wild Eevee. The player concludes by detailing how they call themselves a reverse Pokemon of each species represented on the island before surfing back to Cinnabar Island to heal up their Pokemon. Now, this doesn't technically end here, since the thread actually has a comment from a user by the name Blazeburner, presumably from just a few weeks after the thread was created, detailing their own shorter experience of personalization on a red cartridge that they'd bought from a second-hand dealership, with only one picture attached. The story begins with a short introduction of how they'd grown up watching Digimon and not Pokemon in the 90s, but had recently been getting into Pokemon and went to get an old cartridge from their local second-hand seller to see if they'd like the games or not before investing in the newer releases that'd be a lot more pricey. By God, does this not sound like a creepypasta? I'm not beating the fucking, "oh, this is just a creepypasta" allegations, am I, huh? The next section goes over how the game was just as they'd heard everyone talk about it for the first half of the game, with them picking Charmander as their starter because it was their favourite design, mid as fuck, and went on to beat Brock, Misty, Surge and Erica all before Lavender Town, whilst having a team of 6, but only really using their Charizard nicknamed Shit Eater, and Nidoking called Urine Drinker. Yup, we really are heading back to the early 2000s with this one, baby. There are no signs of personalization in this part of the game, apart from the apparent few glitches that were used just for fun purposes. So I'll quickly move on a few paragraphs to get to the meaty stuff, obviously in Lavender Town, because, you know, nothing creepy can ever happen anywhere else but Lavender Town. The picture they attached flashes up in this section, showing a strange-looking humanoid Pokemon with ringed white eyes and a black colouring, looking like a sort of cross between an upright Mew and a Krogunk. The sprite seeming to be inside of a text box or something. In Lavender Town, as things tend to do, the game supposedly begins to go awry, with the Lavender Town music for whatever reason being switched for an upbeat, more child-friendly song that sounds almost like a bizarre hybrid of the Pallet Town theme and Viridian Forest theme. The player then details how they felt creeped out, like Lavender Town just had this brand new sense of intimidation and negative aura. Guys, I swear this isn't just Super Mario 64 as personalised. I swear, please, I swear these are real. I swear, I'm not shit-talking. I'm not, please. I know this sounds cringy as fuck, but this is a real thing that I have really seen. I promise. Like the town itself was trying to hide something from the player. Miraculously enough though, the player didn't notice anything else weird for a while. Nothing else that went against the stories they'd been told, until they got to the White Hand Trainer, where instead of asking if they believed in ghosts, the NPC instead said, "Did you lose someone close recently?" with the only option to respond being yes. Obviously creeped out, especially as the audio glitched around this point, the player restarted their game thinking that it was bugged. However, upon returning to Lavender Town, the changes remained. The NPCs still asked if the player had lost someone close to them, and the music was still eerily upbeat and happy sounding, though nothing else seemed to have changed about the town. The player then made their way into the Lavender Tower and fought their way through the channelers before fighting Blue, a clear and subtle sign of personalization, as usually you don't encounter channelers until after fighting Blue, though getting to where the Blue fight was supposed to be. However, Blue wasn't there. The player restarted their game again thinking that they were soft-locked, repeating everything up to that point, but miraculously enough, Blue was still gone. Somehow their copy was different to the copy all their friends had been playing. Another picture comes in next, as the player made their... Wait, scripting error? I'm sorry guys, the one picture multiplied, I'm sorry. They bred, it was a very sexy scene. So another picture comes in next, as the player just made their way to the stair, where normally you'd be met by Marowak's ghost, but this time the music just stopped, before the screen faded into battle against the strange Pokemon seen in the picture. Oh. So it's basically just the other picture, but it's the explanation for the picture. Come on guys, in the comments, please be honest, where does this fall on the retard scale? Instead of a cry, it reportedly had what sounded like a distorted 8-bit version of an elephant call. Instead of music, a single note being bent up and down several octaves and semitones. Well, I say notes, but really I mean semitones. If you don't know what a semitone is, basically, when you move between notes, right, if you imagine a piano, when you press two different notes, that would be a whole tone. A semitone would be then hitting the note in between them. So, if you know the layout of a keyboard, you have two white notes, right? you know, or like so you should hopefully know what a C is. You know, so you have the 3 white notes with the C, and then you have the 2 notes in between them. Moving from C to D would be a whole tone, but if you press C and then the black note upwards, it would then be a semitone. I probably should have included that explanation in the script, but yeah, that's what I mean. Being the only thing the player could hear as they fought the strange Pokemon. The Pokemon, seeming to have the base stats of a high-level legendary, managed to quickly wipe the player's whole team. For some reason, the level of the Pokemon being obscured by glitchy text the whole fight. At this point, the player was in between feeling afraid and feeling pure unfiltered gamer rage, probably on the verge of calling the dark-coloured sprites several cancelable slurs. And so turned off the game with that picture, the picture of the sprite just as the strange Pokemon appeared, being the only evidence that this creepypasta-ass sounding story is true. This might be unironically the most creepypasta-esque and frightening stories of personalization I've ever heard. This is like our version of the what is it in the SM64 personalized thing? Is it like the fucking Wario head? I don't know, go watch a fucking iceberg, I'm not explaining this shit. As for stories goes, these are the more interesting ones. These are the more interesting ones. To be honest, most personalization stories basically boil down to, ooh, look at my game, it has a few extra grass tiles that normal guys love. To be honest, it's hard work as well. If they're not clear-cut like these stories, it's oftentimes easy, or just easier, to discredit the accounts as just hoaxes or lacking enough evidence to be given anything but a slight critical eye. Even the ones that are obviously and verifiably personalized can get quite repetitive. For instance, the past 5 cases I've investigated are all in the same area, Viridian Forest, and all include some variation of parts of the forest added, either being a few extra tiles of long grass, or just a few repeating layers of textures that make the forest seem slightly more unsettling to some people, I guess. A few more notable cases without full investigations or actual stories behind them I'll list here as a sort of last hurrah for the video before I properly conclude, as I have talked about this for way too fucking long. And judging by the reputation of the I guess I'll address that at the end. A few weeks ago, I encountered a picture of Pewter City that had an extra house at the left corner of the town that seemed to have slightly different house textures from the usual textures as seen in Gen 1, instead seeming to be the textures used to make Professor Birch's house in Generation 2. Again, another point in the corner of the theory that the content created for the personalization material eventually ended up getting turned into Generations 2 and maybe even Generation 3 and possibly 4. A while ago, I think maybe 2 years ago, I encountered a short 10-second clip, seemingly clipped from a speedrunner's live stream, where instead of saying, upon hearing Pokeflute, sleeping Pokemon will spring awake, it works on all sleeping Pokemon. After giving the speedrunner the Pokeflute, Mr. Fuji said, use the tool to knock the Pokemon out. Don't worry, it won't hurt it unless it bangs its head too hard. The people in the comments seemed to be convinced that this was fake, though, I mean, fuck, you've watched this whole video, obviously, I beg to fucking differ. I think 3 years ago, I encountered a leaked sound sample from someone's copy of Pokemon Green on a forum somewhere, which was an incoherent mixture of 8-bit strings and pounding bass lines, all running over each other as if the game was trying to process more than it could physically handle. If you don't know old Game Boys, could only handle 3 or 4 channels of sounds at the same time. In this leaked audio, I counted about 7 or 8 samples trying to play at the same time, which probably caused the incoherent mess as the system speakers all began trying to process all of the data. The final smaller story comes from a decade-old message board where somebody just asked a simple question. Guys, why is an NPC Red appearing in my version of Pokemon Red? Now, unfortunately, without any more context, I can't really say whether this is just a hoax or a troll or something actually legitimate. To be honest, I can't even tell you what kind of personalization this player could have experienced. Now, I do remember encountering quite a few cases of boss fights randomly appearing, whether the boss fights being with Pokegods or scrapped boss fights like with Professor Oak. The Professor Oak boss fight is definitely one of the most common among personalized copies that have boss fights. My best guess is that if this is real, that the player probably just had a boss fight version of Red in their game. Maybe it's an alpha version of the boss fight that would be eventually used for Generation 2. It also could have been a leftover of an old system where you could play as either red or blue, and the rival would change accordingly. With all that being said and done though, I think it's about time I left this video off. I think it's finally time to fucking end. Thank you all so much for watching, you kings, queens, and non-binary in-betweens, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your day. Not quite bye yet, because there's something I want to say. So, this, as you know, isn't the first version of this video. Now, whilst this video and the version of this video with the text-to-speech are fundamentally the same thing, you may notice that both of them exist at the same time. Meaning that I'm not going to remove the other one, mainly because it fucking popped off in the algorithm. Now, it did get a lot of dislikes, and nobody really seemed to like it, and I know why, and I hear you, okay? I want you to know that I was gonna do this anyway, but I kind of got a bit overexcited, and I really wanted to get a video out there, because I felt like, you know, it was like I hadn't uploaded for like 3 months and I didn't want people to think my channel was dead, so I kind of pushed a video out as quickly as I could. Plus, I'm gonna level with you, I really don't like scripted content. It's always been a thing where I can't follow scripts, even in school. It's why I quit drama class and I never went into acting, even though I 100% could have done. In fact, like, I was basically begged to, like, become an actor at one point, but I chose not to because I don't like scripts. I guess it's kind of an autism thing, I don't really know, but yeah. This video has been honestly excruciating to record. My mind does not gel with scripts very well. So, whilst I understand that a lot of people didn't like the text-to-speech version, I hope that this serves as a worthy replacement, and if you prefer the TTS version because it's more scripted and it retains more of its video essay elements, whilst this video is more typical of my other videos, more of a scripted rant than a purely video essay script, then yeah, you know, you can watch this video, or you can watch the other video if you prefer that one. Hey, I'm a living, you know, I believe in democracy. You know, I want you to be able to choose freely what video you want to watch. So, please just don't get the wrong idea, and I hope that anybody thinking that this was like a dead channel from the last video will give me a second chance. I really hope you give me a second chance. And with that, I think I can finally say bye.